Ad infinitum. It means again and again in the same way, forever. Also, it's what us horror fans do when we try a new game. We see a new spooky game, we develop hype for it, and then we play it. And we hope that we shit ourselves all over our parents' basement or in our shed or next to our fiance, whatever your situation, your life situation may be. Horror games unite a lot of people, and the horror genre is vast and infinite. And to me, a lot of that seems to come to fruition in the game Ad Infinitum. Originally meant to come out in April of 2023, Ad Infinitum is now coming out September 14th, 2023, from a newly created Hecate Studios and being published by Nacon. If you want to know where you can play the game, that's going to be on Xbox Series, PlayStation 5, and of course on PC. And that will be for $34.99 US, or if you want the Ad Infinitum Supporter Edition, you can get the $39.99, and if you pre-order that, you can play the game 48 hours early, as well as getting a digital art book and a soundtrack. Now we know it's horror, but with that being said, let's break down everything there really is to know about the game. So first off, the tagline for the game reads as this: when reality is a nightmare, nightmares become real. In this psychological horror game, you fight terrifying creatures invading your mind. Can you save your sanity? Now, one thing I thought was really interesting, and I'll get into why this is relevant in a moment, is that originally this game was concepted and a trailer was created back in 2014 by the studio founders. And then in 2019, once everything had gained traction and the interest was still there to create a full product, they began work in 2019, and of course it's now come into fruition 4 years later. But to continue about the game, you are trapped between the walls of your family home, a mansion in Berlin, and the trenches of World War I. You try and place together your past and take control of your life. Now, if I have to guess everything based off of right now, when it talks about your reality being, terrible, it's talking about the war itself and maybe the PTSD that you're suffering alongside it. So you're going to need to break the cycle. Will the nightmare of the war ever end? Will you find inner peace one day? In Ad Infinitum, you play as a German soldier haunted by the horrors of the Great War. While your mind grapples with memories of your family home and the trenches on the front, you try to break the endless cycle of suffering. So right there, you've already got the reason the game is titled as such. Between a dream and reality, you wake up in your bedroom, unchanged from your teenage years, in a run-down and deserted manor house. Suddenly and inexplicably, you are transported to the trenches where the horror of the war are overshadowed by vile and even more terrifying creatures. Unable to distinguish between reality and nightmare, you must fight to regain control of your life's narrative. And that's one thing I really did want to comment on, was the imagery in these trailers. There's so much inspiration, whether it be visually speaking from the period piece that is World War I or other horror entities. Just everything about the way some of the shots are and the way some of the creatures are moving is just so full. I love the look of all of it. And with that being said, it's the nightmares that become reality that is just so cool. Unspeakable nightmares come to life in the recesses of your mind. To escape the death traps and terrifying creatures, you must understand the source and motivation of each monster and solve the puzzles that stand in your way. From blind demons who can hear your softest of footsteps, to hideous disjointed puppets who move in the dark. Horror is around every corner. And I have to say, the inspiration and the different mechanics of each monster sounds really cool. And I know some people might think of this as a survival horror game, but I don't think that's the case here. I think each monster is, I don't want to say like Outlast, but you're going to have to figure out how to evade and defeat them in a story sense, of course. And I know they mentioned puzzles here, and I'll get into some of the inspirations for that in just a minute as well. But we're going to be dealing with a family torn apart. The fallout of the war is felt far from the front. Peel back the shroud that hides the secrets of your family torn apart by the Great War, and try to remember your past. Through exploration and by solving riddles and puzzles between the walls of your home and the barbed wire of no man's land, you will ultimately reveal a chapter in the story of a German family torn apart by the war. And to me, that sounds so interesting from a period piece standpoint, but a couple times now it's mentioned a puzzle, and I think that's going to be really, really interesting. Immediately off the bat, I see the inspirations, as this game was concepted in 2014, and I'm sure game design has actually changed things since 2019. I see things like the water monster, Morse code, and the alchemy puzzles within the trailer, and my immediate instinct is Amnesia. Interestingly enough, we actually just had an Amnesia game set during the Great War with the French battalion within the bunker, which is a really interesting viewpoint. and definitely a completely different experience. So with that being said, I'm already in the headspace of thinking this is going to be really cool. Hello from the future, this is me recording at a different time, unfortunately, but really that was it for this video. There's not really too much to sum up about the game. If you are excited about the game, please let me know, what it is. Is it the puzzles? The potential gameplay of that. I don't expect a survival horror game. It says for the most part you cannot combat against these creatures, but I'm curious if it's going to be from a story standpoint that you can, say, pull a lever and then they go get bombed or something. All these kind of different things like that. I'm really curious to see how exactly just the gameplay plays out, but you have all of your need-to-knows, so whenever that time comes, if you're going to be there, let me know, and if you want to see a review, let me know as well. And if you're from Nacon or Heck 8 Games, well, hey, maybe, just maybe. So consider subscribing or consider sending me a review code, and I would love to play this game. I'm not entitled to a review code, and I'm going to pick this up anyway. My only concern is, right now, is Starfield. So, yes. Hello, goodbye, and that's that. Thanks.